Today I'm going to be making a dessert with this lime. Well, Trinidadian lime or Caribbean lime. This one is inspired by the key lime pie found famously throughout the Florida Keys. It's tart, it's sweet, and it is everything delicious. I am making these with local limes found in Trinidad, so I suppose we can call this one a Trini sweet lime pie. It's a pretty simple recipe and we're making this one all by hand. No gadgets needed whatsoever. So it's about that time to get started. If I can do this, you can do this too. Let's do this. So let's start off with the ingredients. So for the crust, we are going to need some wheat biscuits. I'm using digestives in this recipe. Some lightly roasted peanuts, melted butter, salt, and cinnamon. And for our pie filling, we are going to need limes. Lots and lots of limes. So we're going to be using the zest and juice of these limes, some egg yolks, and some condensed milk. So the first thing I have to say about this pie, it's an easy pie. No gadgets required whatsoever. So we're doing this entire thing by hand. So if you don't have any food processors or anything like that, don't worry, this one is right up your alley. Of course, if you have a food processor and you want to use it for convenience, by all means do it. And when I say food processor, I mean for the biscuits, because this is where we're going to start. So I'm going to be showing you how I make my crust. Now this crust is going to be made with these wheat biscuits. If you have graham cracker biscuits, that's fine as well, you can use that. But essentially, what we have here, these ingredients, we're going to turn this into a brilliant crust that is going to be used in this pie. And you could actually use this crust for cheesecakes and other pies as well. So, now that we have that out of the way, let's get started on our crust. First thing we need is a little handy dandy bag. I find this is the easiest way to get this step out of the way. So, let me show you how easy. Take your biscuits, dump it in the bag. You're going to take the peanuts, dump it in the bag, and then we're going to just push some of the air out. And look at how easy this is. Smash, 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 smash. And you can roll on it as well. Like I said, if you have a food processor, you want to use your food processor, sure, throw that in there, pulse it. But hey, there's something good about doing things by hand, the old school way. I think so. How about you? I mean, of course, in the old school way, they didn't exactly have plastic bags and Ziploc, but that's all right. So I'm just going to continue mashing this, and I'm going to show you the consistency we're looking at. I think we are just about ready. I just want to show you the consistency of my biscuits that are going to form the base of the biscuit crust. Now the cool thing is the cookies, the biscuits, have kind of crumbled and gotten a nice sandy texture, and the nuts, they still have some chunks to it, which I particularly favor that because it gives you a nice little crunchy bite when you bite into the pie. So on the topic of nuts, how I decided to come up with this recipe is I travel quite often to Florida, and when I'm in southern Florida, I always like to take a visit to the Keys. And of course, there's the infamous key lime pie that comes from Florida Keys, and I, for one, have tasted my fair share. One of my favorite pies, actually, comes from the Keys, and they've put nuts in their crust, so that pretty much has inspired my idea to add nuts to my recipe because I pretty much like it. It's delicious. Of course, if you have any allergies, leave the nuts out, but this really does jazz up the flavor of the crust. So, moving on, I'm adding some cinnamon, some salt. So in with the melted butter. I'm adding a bit first. Let me give it a little bit of a stir, and then I'll add the rest. So let's just kind of toss the butter up a bit. It doesn't need to be wet. What you want is for the crust to kind of hold together along with the rest. So get your hands in there and kind of press and see if it's holding together. If it's not holding together, that's your tip to add some more of the butter. So of course, in with the rest of the butter. And that should do it. In with the hands again. It's kind of fun to, I don't know, get handsy in the kitchen. The feel of the thing always gives you the best indication. That's something that's my tip that I will always share with anyone. All right, so now let's do the squeeze test. So squeeze. Let's do some squeeze. See? So it's kind of packing tightly and it is sticking together. So that means we are going to move on to adding it to our pie bowl. So into our pie dish. And this really does smell delicious already. I mean, it's biscuits, butter, and nuts. That's already a good combination, wouldn't you say? So you can use your hands to press it down, like so. And you can also use the back of a measuring cup or just a flat surface, a glass or whatever you have. Make sure it's flat. And use it and sort of press down into your dish. And that is just going to tightly pack the crumb crust in. So I'm just going to continue adding in the crumb mixture, and I'm going to just pack with my measuring cup. Biscuit crust ready for a preheated oven. So we're just going to pop this in there and bake for a couple of minutes. And what that is going to do is that's going to ensure that our crust holds up really well when it's time to slice our pie. The pie crust is out of the oven. Okay people, so these are Trinidadian limes. Not to be confused with a popular Trinidadian term, to lime, which essentially means to party or to hang out. Though technically I think once you have key lime pie, it's a party. I'm just saying. But anyways, let's get to juicing these limes because we have to get a cup and a little bit more of juice from these little guys. So let's get started. All right. Woo! Time for a tip. So when juicing limes, this is what I always do. Put the lime down on a flat surface, put your palm on it, and give it a bit of a roll. I find that this way you get all of the juice out, or most of the juice out, in a much easier fashion. All right, so I'm just gonna throw a little question out to you. Can you make a guess how many limes I am going to use in this pie? Well, when I say limes, I mean the juice and the zest. So how many limes am I gonna use? And I'm going to leave the answer at the end of the video. So what we're kind of going to do is create like a little bit of an assembly line. So first thing is just cut your limes open. That's just going to speed up the whole thing. The next step is, after we cut, we've got to squeeze. So the easiest thing I find is not to individually strain each single lime as we go along. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to squeeze all of the cut limes into a bowl, seeds, everything, and in the end we are just going to strain it. So that way it just keeps the process moving a lot faster. Now, here is a bonus tip. If you are planning to make this pie for any family gathering, you know the in-laws are going to be over. Yep, those pesky in-laws. Well, here's the tip. Invite them into the kitchen. While you are juicing your limes, pick up a lime. Aim for the eye. Then fire. It was an accident, right? So now that we've juiced up our limes, the next step is to just strain it. Now that's a lot of seeds. So look, we actually got a mere 1.5 cups. So we have a little extra on hand. But we're ready to start our filling. So now it's time to crack our eggs. And for this recipe, we are only going to be using the yolks. So separate your yolks from your whites. Alright, so we've got our yolks in. Now we're just going to add a pinch of salt, lime juice, condensed milk. This stuff is pretty thick, so you're probably going to have to just nudge it out a little bit. Right, now that we have all of the ingredients in here for our filling, all we have to do is just whisk everything together and make sure it's combined. So you go in with a whisk, make sure that you get those egg yolks fully incorporated. And essentially what this filling is it's like a custard because we're using milk, we're using egg yolks, and the egg yolks are really going to thicken this up. Oh, and you know what? We left out an ingredient, the lime zest. So let's add our lime zest. So we are zesting 2 limes. I like my tarts like this, my lime tart. I like it really tart. And this kind of just helps pump up the flavor, so to speak. Alright, so we've got our zest in there. Just giving everything a nice whisk to combine. And it's interesting because the consistency and the texture is already kind of thick. And you can smell the condensed milk, you can smell the zestiness from the lime. So this is ready to go into our pie crust, or I should say on top of our pie crust. Alright, so I took the crust out of the oven. You can see it kind of turned a nice little golden color of brown, which is great. We are going to pour our filling into our crust. And it is time for the oven. Into the oven. Now I've reduced the temperature, so we're just going to slide that in and let it bake. Alright, so pie is looking good. So just take a little look at the edges, and you can see that it's sort of set up. See how I'm moving it and the edges aren't really moving, but the center is still kind of a little jiggly wiggly. But that's alright, that's gonna set up when it cools in the fridge. So the pie has been cooling on my countertop now for about an hour, and I'm going to pop it into the fridge and let it just sit, chill, and set. So earlier on in the video, I asked if you could figure out how many lines I used for this recipe. Well, if you guessed 17, you're correct.